Optics at Michigan. I taught optics at Northeastern in an evening program. I worked at Honeywell for a few years, so I did optics. And then I came here, and I guess one of the things is there are approximately 30 students out there with their degrees because of me. And I never got my PhD. And there's a little story about that. I was up at, one of my favorite hobbies is fishing. And I was up there with the fishing guides, and we're all at the boat dock ready to go upstream. And this one guy introduces me to another gal who's an optometrist and said, this is Dr. Wolfe. And I said, no, Jeff, I'm not a doctor. He said, how did you get to be on the faculty then? You have to be very good. And that's kind of true. But, you know, I got here, came from Honeywell with an offer of a full professorship with tenure. And that's kind of hard to turn down, right? Okay. And feel free to ask questions with a measurement meter. And I'm going to plot the output. And so the output says, hey, it varies. The intensity of the light varies with color or with wavelength. And in fact, this is not from this spectrum, but in fact, a spectrum of this sort, a technical spectrum, measured spectrum, is an optical fingerprint. Absolutely everything in the world has its own particular, talk about scattering, but here are a couple of waves. Now, supposing these waves encounter the molecules in our atmosphere. The molecules in our atmosphere are about as big as my pointer dot compared to these wavelengths. So the interaction is between these wavelengths and, let's say, my pointer dot. Is it intuitive that there will be more interaction with the blue wave than there is with the red wave? Just because there are more waves per foot, more waves that interact with those particles. That stuff is called Rayleigh scattering. So, what does that mean? It means that blue is scattered more than red. So, your sky out there is blue, and this sky in one of my favorite places is Marble Canyon. I can't claim to be one of those, but I'd love to be. They're fishing for trout, and you catch them there. So that's why we have blue skies, because the white sunlight is scattered more in the blue than it is in the red. And that's why we have red sunsets, because as the sun goes down, more red comes to us through the atmosphere. Clouds are not Rayleigh scattering. Clouds are me scattering, and a red wave that hits a big cloud particle. And if I could have, I would have drawn it even bigger. The droplets of water are much, much bigger than either red waves or blue waves, and so they both get scattered the same amount. So that's why we have white clouds, and the white clouds are where lots of transmission goes on, a certain amount of scattering, but not you this thing to think about. We only have great sunsets when there are clouds, but clouds are neutral scatterers. Is it a paradox? I'm waiting. Is it a paradox?
Paradox.
There. Okay, one by one. Oh, a paradox. Yeah, okay. Tell you what goes on. When there are no clouds, all you do is have the sun go down. What you need is the neutral scattering by the clouds, and then that scattered light comes through the atmosphere and becomes red. Because the atmosphere turns it red, it filters out the other colors, but the clouds do the scattering. So that's the full-blown description of what a red sunset is all about. Now, skies are bluer in Arizona because of the combination of Rayleigh scattering and me scattering. What happens is, in Arizona, there's less water vapor. And I just showed you, I hope, that water vapor, all those droplets, are neutral scatterers. So they would make, if we have enough of it, and we have seen it, the more vapor there is in the atmosphere, the whiter the scattering is. So as long as we don't have much water vapor in the atmosphere, we're getting Rayleigh scattering and not B scattering. Back to a project we had when before I became meritless. We were asked to see if we could design a device that would sense every stroke of lightning on the projected face of the Earth. Yeah, right? There's a guy in the meteorology department who is one of the world's great experts on lightning, and we combined with him to do this. Surprising fact, because of the spread of lightning and because of the nature of the optics, the device we designed was about as big as a bread box. And it would sit up in geosynchronous volts a day, a year, 44,000 a day. What we care about are cloud to ground. Cloud to cloud lightning strokes don't bother us, but cloud to ground. Because now each stroke takes about 30 microseconds, and there are several flashes in a stroke. Typically 4, but sometimes 3, sometimes 5 or 6. There are call that a bolt, all right? And they're about 1 billion kilowatts. If we could only tame that, but there's not a chance of taming that. And the thunder comes from the supersonic travel, because this is just a giant arc. Remember, you scrub your feet on the floor and you go zap. Right? That's what this is, but in major proportions. So, so that's what we dealt with. And now, you've also, I heard, you probably did too, count the seconds between the thunder and the light. And it's a mile per second? No, it's 5 seconds per mile. And if you don't believe me, figure it out. Here's a homework exercise. The speed of sound is approximately 700 miles per hour. You can take the speed of light to be infinite and figure out how long it takes for 5 seconds at 700 miles per hour. Light, I showed these waves. Sometimes the waves go this way. Sometimes the waves go this way. Sometimes they go this way. Okay? Now, you know that light, as it comes off the road, is polarized. Anybody else a fisherman? Okay. A little bit. All right. Here's, particularly if you're a fly fisherman, here's something to keep in mind. You don't want to put your fly where you think, you know, you don't put it over there because he's a lot closer to you. You got to lead him more than you thought you needed to do. That's the first admonition that optics gives you about fishing, in particular fly fishing. And then the fish has a window. There are places he can't see you because there is total internal reflection. So he can only see in this window. He can't see outside that window. And the higher up in the water he gets, the bigger his window. The further down he hides. You've seen him. This one is near us. This particular rainbow was over Sabino Canyon Road. I don't know if you can recognize the hills and whatnot. Can you see that there are 2 rainbows? Okay, there's the primary rainbow and the second primary bow. Light comes in right straight onto an idealized droplet of water. It will be refracted, but it will not be bent because it's right along the perpendicular to the normal. But light that comes in there, it's going to be refracted. And then it will be reflected. And I drew the normal there so I could make the angle of reflection equal the angle of incidence. And then it's refracted back out. Okay? That's the blue light. The red light does the same thing. And out it comes. So the primary bow is formed by a refraction, a reflection, and another refraction. And because different colors are refracted different amounts, that's what happens. See, the red was on top. The red is on top. The calculation agrees with observation, which is always. You've seen this? It's a mirage, right, this happens to be on the road between Hatch and Deming. I had my wife take about 47 pictures until we really got a good one. This is the business of a mirage that you can see here. And part of this is in your mind, as you'll see in a minute, but part of it has to do with optics. The game is that the road is heating the air. And so we have hot, which means lower refractive index, and not so hot, meaning higher refractive index, so it bends away. So what's happening is, if I may reverse the argument a little bit, you are looking at rays that have come down here and been bent by a gradient index of air. And it's a form, it's not total internal reflection, but it is light being refracted from a dense medium to wet. This is where your mind is playing tricks on you. What you're seeing is a reflection of the sky. How could there be a reflection of the sky from the road if there wasn't water on it? Okay, that's what you're 18, incredibly good, emeritus faculty. We had two Nobel laureates. One of them passed away about a year or so ago. And the other one is still working, and we have one adjunct in the whole state related to scientific and engineering pursuits. Now the number here and here, and we've had a lot to do with that. This is optics. This is not science. This is optics. So we've increased that tremendously. If what's her name up in Phoenix, I can't remember our governor's name for a second.
Brewer.
Jan Brewer, yeah. If she cuts education, she's crazy as all get out.